So we had Aviat at Mobile World Congress 2010. So what do you do?
So Aviat Networks is a 4G, 3G backhaul, IP backhaul solutions company, providing all the backhaul infrastructure components to transport your 2G, 3G legacy services, and as you migrate to 3G, Ethernet, and 3.5G and 4G, it allows you to expand to those services as well.
So you're number one in the US?
So we're number one microwave wireless infrastructure provider.
Microwave wireless, what does it mean?
So microwave wireless. So as opposed to laying down fiber optic and transmitting your data over fiber, you can actually do it wirelessly using the Aviat Networks equipment. It's a lower capex investment, so instead of having to trench the roads and lay down fiber, you can actually low-cost put up microwave wireless infrastructure between 2 points, and it's very easy to operate.
But it's not as far as some of the other spectrum, right?
No, and some of the, depending upon the frequency that you're actually in, you can go 50, 60 kilometers with connections.
50, 60 kilometers?
Absolutely.
And how fast is the bit rate there?
It can go anywhere from, let's say, 6 megabits, 3 E1s, all the way up to 400 megabits per channel, and then you can actually bond multiple channels or multiple carriers together.
So the carrier would buy exclusive right for the spectrum?
Yes, so the carrier actually leases the spectrum from a government agency, and they pay not only for the actual frequency they're using, but the amount of bandwidth or the megahertz within that frequency.
But that frequency is not for the end consumer, right?
No.
Is the infrastructure.
That's correct. That's all infrastructure and backhaul for the consumer.
It would make any sense to use that spectrum for consumers?
No, because you don't get the actual propagation through walls and the distance when you go omnidirectional. Okay. Microwave wireless backhaul is about pointing two antennas at each other.
Okay, you have to be very precise where you point and stuff like that?
Yes.
Is it very expensive to set up 2 points, or how does it work?
Relative to fiber optic, no, it's actually lower cost. Okay. It's lower cost from a capex as well as lower opex to install and operate.
Lower cost than being in a hole for 50 kilometers.
Absolutely.
But so it's still kind of expensive a little bit.
Of course. I mean, any sort of long distance backhaul can be relatively expensive, but when you think about it, maybe an out-of-region operator, a cable company, doesn't want to lease fiber from, let's say, a Verizon or an AT&T. They want to actually use their own microwave, and they don't have to lease that infrastructure from the local PTT.
So they can lease it from the government, you say?
So they lease the spectrum from the government, but relative to leasing many gigabits worth of data on fiber optic, it's very low cost.
So it means that it broadens it out to many more corporations to get their high-speed networks somehow going on. Yep. And there's a latency, or is there anything like that in the system?
Latency is low latency. It's measured in microseconds.
Microseconds. And it's 400 megabit both ways, of course.
Excuse me?
400 megabit both ways.
400 megabits per carrier.
Per carrier. And if somebody does it somewhere, you can't have somebody else doing it at the same place. You have to go somewhere else, or is there interference?
You can't operate in the same frequency. It's the frequency for you is allocated to you and only you.
Only you in that place.
In that specific geographical region.
So nobody can come there and interfere.
No,
it's impossible. And how about in the U.S.? How many people are using that?
In the U.S., 20% of the mobile operator infrastructure is using wireless backhaul. But in addition to mobile operators, in North America, a lot of public utilities, state and local governments, and public safety use microwave infrastructure because it's resilient. Because if you have a fiber cut, let's say for your 911 service, you don't want people to be left with an emergency at home and not being able to get through to the public safety.
How about other spectrum, like the white spaces? Does that compete with your
Not
business?
at all. Not at all. This is again, it's all 6 gigahertz and above, and the white space is all down in the lower reaches of the spectrum.
It's different kind of businesses.
It's a different kind of business, and that frequency is reserved for subscriber access, where it's point to multi-point. This is a point-to-point technology.
Okay, cool. How about many other countries using it as well, or is it U.S. advanced markets?
Nope. Most of the mobile operator backhaul infrastructure is wireless. I would say somewhere between 70 and 80% of mobile operators' infrastructure is composed of microwave radio.
Make a big base station and they put an antenna on the top.
Got an antenna?
They rebroadcast it with their stuff.
Absolutely. So they take 2 antennas, put it at the top of their tower, and beam them at each other, and you get the high speed.
Is it cheap enough to use in third world countries?
Actually, that's Herstratics again. Excuse me. Aviat Networks. That's our former name, Herstratics. So Aviat Networks is the #2 provider in Africa, where probably 80 to 90% of the infrastructure is using wireless transport, because it is very difficult to trench, through the jungles and through the roads to lay down fiber and even copper, because a lot of times people are stealing that infrastructure out of the ground and reselling it.
So it's just you just have to have a line of sight.
Just have to have line of sight.
And it's better than using WiMAX or whatever for backhaul.
WiMAX has got a high degree of latency, and it doesn't have the distances of a point-to-point microwave.
Thanks.